Paul Borowski is the new president.
One day together. And they show up, Red, they show up Larry and the flying car. And the plane is going with that burglar falls off.
All right.
So Larry goes, because the guy can't see, but Larry goes, oh. Okay, am I coming in better now? So that ended that. Coming in at all.
Yeah, I got a haircut.
The neighbor said she saw him.
Shopping for a wide variety of trees.
Sounds like what? All right. Good evening. This is the April 2nd, 2014 meeting of the Planning Board of the Town of Smithtown. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. The first item on the agenda this evening, the Planning Department recommends the following items for adjournment as we have insufficient information to act upon them. Under Part 1, Item 1, 2011-01 All Seasons Motor Lodge. Item 2, 2012-04 Storybook Homes. Item 3, 2012-02 Carlson Associates. Item 4, 773 Scholar Estates. Item 5, 1139 Jenna Court. Item 6, 288 Olivia Estates. Under Part 2, Item 7, 2010-06 KBC Holdings. Item 8, Case 911A Glen Hill Northern. You'll notice that in your correspondence there's a memo from the Planning Department with some updates on Jenna Court, as well as a memo from Eugene DiNicola regarding the Boulder zone change. You should note that we're currently waiting for comments from the state regarding the zone change, and the Planning Department is reviewing a petition from the residents to determine if Section 265 of Town Law would apply, which would require a vote by a supermajority. Mr. Chairman, these are the items that the Planning Department recommends for adjournment this evening.
Is there anybody present who wishes to be heard on any of those items which the Planning Department is requesting be adjourned? Hearing none. Motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, motion to adjourn items 1 through 8 on today's agenda as just presented to the board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? So adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda under Part 3, Item 9 is amendment of lot lines for Rita Brief and Edward and Dawn Gary. And if you turn to the third page of your maps, you'll see an illustration of exactly what this amendment of lot line is. The applicants are requesting an amendment of lot lines for properties located on the northeast corner of Lancaster Avenue and Layden Street in Nesconset to transfer property from Suffolk County Tax Map 166316 to 166315.1 and sell the remaining part of 166316 to the owners of 166317. In order to approve this lot line amendment, a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals, BZA, to reduce the minimum lot area is required. The Board of Zoning Appeals conducted a public hearing on February 11, 2014 and approved the variances. The Planning Department has received a lot line amendment application for 3 tax lots that make up 2 properties. This is an uncommon situation as both of the properties are substandard and would remain substandard after the lot line amendment. The larger property, A, fronting on Layden Street, is a 7,910 square foot L-shaped lot made up of tax lots 15.1 and 16. The smaller property, B, facing Lancaster Avenue, is a 3,990 square foot rectangular lot made up of tax lot 17. This application is to alter the tax lines on Lot A between 15.1 and 16 in order to fit the house on Lot A entirely on Lot 15.1 and sell the remaining part of 16, including the detached garage, to the owner of Lot B, as illustrated in the attached sketch. The applicants are requesting the amendment in order to give more space to Lot B and to renovate the house on Lot A from the sale of the property. This application would shrink Lot A on Layden Street and enlarge Lot B on Lancaster Avenue, which would both remain undersized after the lot line amendment. Lot A will be reduced by 2,623 square feet to 5,287 square feet, and Lot B will be expanded by this amount to 6,613 square feet. The proposed layout will create more conventional shaped rectangular lots of a similar size, and the table below shows the existing and proposed dimensions. This application was heard before the Planning Board on October 2nd, 2013, and at that meeting, the Board made a recommendation to the BZA to approve the reduction in lot size and the required variances. At their meeting on February 11, 2014, the Board of Zoning Appeals approved the necessary variances. The Engineering and Highway Departments have no objection to the proposed amendment of lot lines, and the Traffic Safety Department has no comment. The Planning Department has no objection to this request since a new buildable lot is not being created. No expansion of the homes on substandard lots is proposed, and the change will result in more conventional shaped lots of a similar size. The Planning Department offers the following resolutions for the Board's consideration. Be it resolved that the Planning Board hereby approves an amendment of lot lines for the properties known as Suffolk County Tax Map Number 1663, 15.1, and 16, and Suffolk County Tax Map Number 1663, 17, so as to convey approximately 2,623 square feet from part of Lot 1663, 16 to 1663, 17 by the survey prepared by Kohanic and Plan Land Surveyors dated August 13, 2012, subject to the following conditions. 1. This amendment of lot line shall be filed in the office of the Suffolk County Clerk. 2. The applicant shall submit copies of all filed documents, including deeds with meets and bounds descriptions, with date stamp and file numbers to the Planning Department. And 3. Valid certificates of occupancy for both properties, including all structures as depicted on the survey prepared by Kohanic and Plan Land Surveyors dated August 13, 2012, shall be submitted to the Planning Department.
Anybody present on behalf of the applicant?
Donald King, 75 East Main Street, Kings Park, New York. I have some colored drawings that show the existing, the proposed, and the approval by the ZBA. I'd like to hand them up.
Surely. Thank you, sir.
And the conditions as set forth by Alex they're fine.
Pass them this way and we can pass them back. We'll pass them this way and we can pass them back. So basically, we have an L-shaped lot on Leiden Street and a relatively square lot on Lancaster Avenue, and you're looking to transfer the bottom portion of the L in the L-shaped lot over to the relatively square lot to have two lots, one of which looks like it's going to be rectangular, well, two almost rectangular lots.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Anybody in the audience wishes to be heard on this application? Any questions from any members of the board? You want to give me these? I'll pass them back. Look at them. Any questions?
From the third lot that's being created, is the vinyl garage being removed from that lot and eventually moved to the new lot?
No,
It's not.
no, it is not.
And there's no pending application at this time to fit a third home in on that lot?
No.
And there's no septic systems that would be affected or,
I think they're covered.
okay.
Any other questions? You're in agreement with the conditions and the resolution as it was read?
They're fine with,
Okay.
yes, thank you very much.
All right, then we need a motion, please, on this matter?
In the matter of the amendment of lot lines, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 166-3-15.1, 16, and 17, I move that we adopt the resolution as read in accordance with the recommendation of the Planning Department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? The motion carries unanimously, 5-0, and the resolution is adopted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda under Part 3, Item 10, is a waiver request for a subdivision called Archer Hills, number 299. The applicant is requesting to encroach 17 feet into a limited access and planting easement, as well as remove a required fence on lot number 2 within a subdivision known as Archer Hills 299, in order to regrade the steep slopes and install a two-tiered retaining wall with a combined height of 16 feet. The applicant obtained variances from the Board of Zoning Appeals, BZA, to alter environmentally sensitive lands in the form of steep slopes. The final map of Archer Hills was approved by the Planning Board in 1967. This application was approved for a total of 4 lots on a cul-de-sac known as Monroe Court, 3 of which back up to St. John Lynn Road, New York State Route 25A. The final map of Archer Hills contained a 391-foot-long limited access and planting easement along the western edge of the property on St. John Lynn Road, located along the rear property lines in 3 lots, number 1, 2, and 3. The purpose of this easement was to protect the slopes that drop off steeply towards the road and preserve the natural woods that have historically lined these natural embankments of St. John Lynn Road. As part of the subdivision, the area was to remain naturally wooded and a 6-foot fence was to be installed at the top of the slope. Conditions J, K, and L of the final approval state: J, retention of the natural wooded area on the slope side of lots numbered 1, 2, 3 inclusive, which backs up to St. John Lynn Road. K, no ingress or egress to or from St. John Lynn Road, New York State 25A, shall be permitted on lots numbers 1 through 3 inclusive. And L, required fence on the top of slope along St. John Lynn Road shall continue fence line established in map of Riviera Ridge, Section 1. The map of Riviera Ridge, number 120, is a subdivision filed in 3 parts in 1955, directly south of Archer Hills, also backing up to St. John Lynn Road. This subdivision included a similar limited access and planting easement extending approximately 1,700 feet along the steep slopes on the east side of St. John Lynn Road in sections 1 and 2. When Archer Hills was approved in 1967, the established fence line atop the slope and the established limited access easement was extended into this subdivision. As part of this subdivision, the Planning Board modified the zoning ordinance so as to permit a reduction of the required minimum depth of the front yard on Monroe Court from 40 feet to 30 feet on lots numbered 1 and 2 in order to bring the homes further from the steep slopes along St. John Lynn Road. On January 21, 1976, the Planning Board granted a waiver reducing the required fence to a 4-foot vinyl-coated chain link fence and granting a waiver for installing new plantings in the required planting screen. In this waiver request, the applicant indicated that the planting screen was already heavily wooded. On November 14, 2013, Steve DeMarco submitted a waiver application requesting that the limited access and planting easement be modified to allow the 4-foot chain link fence atop the slope to be removed and for 2 tiers of 8-foot retaining walls to be installed 17 feet further into the sloped area behind the fence. The proposal would extend the flat part of the rear yard 12 feet into the sloped area, and a second tier would be 5 feet in front of the first one. The 2 retaining walls would total 16 feet in height. The applicant has indicated they are doing this because of ground settling issues. However, it appears that ground settling issues could be addressed with a minimal amount of fill that would have little impact on the easement. The applicant has also indicated to the BZA that this approval will increase the amount of usable rear yard. The board should note the average rear yard in an R10 zone is approximately 4,000 square feet, approximately 80 by 50. With the decreased front yard setback and above average width of this lot, as approved with the subdivision, this parcel was given approximately 5,400 square feet, about 135 by 40, of usable rear yard with the existing fence on top of the slope. The waiver application was distributed to all concerned departments for review. The Highway Engineering and Traffic Safety departments have no objection to the applicant's request. The Planning Department has reviewed the application and has concerns about the impacts of this waiver on the character of this area and the precedent it may set for neighboring properties. The proposal would result in the loss of 40% of the natural terrain and vegetation on this property. The steep slopes and woods along both sides of St. John Lynn Road have historically been protected from development in order to prevent the erosion of slopes and to preserve the natural character of this corridor. The steep slopes in this area are part of a natural valley, which was formed by a tributary to the Nissequogue River. St. John Land Road is a historic road dating back to the 18th century, which follows the topography of this natural valley. The steep slopes lining St. John Land Road extend from a point just south of East Main Street in Kings Park and continue for approximately 1.5 miles to the confluence of St. John Land Road with Jericho Turnpike at the Nissequogue River. And I believe you have a map of this attached to your packet. As this area became developed with subdivisions starting in the 1950s, most properties were designed to back up to the slopes on St. John Land Road with no ingress onto this road. These slopes and woods were protected by limited access easements. Across from Archer Hills, on the west side of St. John Land Road, the map of Country Village from 1956 and the map of Smithtown Hillside from 1964 contain thousands of feet of limited access easements along Route 25A to protect these natural areas. Many other residential and commercial developments along this corridor, including St. Catherine's of Siena Hospital, St. Catherine's of Siena Nursing Home, and Willow Ridge condominiums, preserve the slopes and wooded areas along St. John Land Road through natural buffers. St. John Land Road is identified in the town's comprehensive plan as one of the town's scenic roads, which are generally characterized by views of rural, agrarian, rolling terrain, wooded vegetation, and few structures. These are roads that residents appreciate and like to travel. The comprehensive plan cautions that the scenic character of roads could be seriously degraded by future development or harm to established greenbelts. The comprehensive plan explains visual quality is a major component of the town's attractiveness for residential and industrial development. Studies indicate that better development is attracted to areas with high visual quality. Accordingly, changes in the town's aesthetic character will directly affect local property values, the quality of future development, and thus the tax base. Dozens of properties along this corridor and other corridors in town contain similar limited access easements, so the planning department is concerned about setting a precedent. There are subdivisions with similar circumstances along Landing Avenue, which is also identified as a scenic road. Permitting the properties backing up to natural slopes on scenic roads to terrace the hills and expand their rear yards could result in the destruction of natural topography and the loss of woods, which would produce a negative impact on the natural character of the corridor and the surrounding neighborhoods. The Planning Department recommends an on-site inspection of the subject site as well as the St. John Land Road corridor.
Good evening, sir. Are you here on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, I am. Steve DeMarco. Applicant is right here. My name is Nicholas Capucci. I'm representing him from Todd O'Connell Architects.
Can you please give your address, business address for the record, please?
It's 1200 Veterans Highway, Hauppauge, New York. CAPPUCCI, and it's Nicholas with an H, Nicholas. I have the sign affidavit posting.
Please hand it up to Mr. Wallach, please.
Pictures of the sign too as well. It's pretty much what the gentleman, well, good evening, Chairman and members of the board. What he was saying is on the site that is known at 4 Monroe Court, there's a very steep slope, and in order to achieve this rear yard for my client, a usable rear yard, we have to do this 2-tier retaining wall system, and the retaining wall, due to engineering calculations, actually got shrunk by a foot. Both walls are 7 foot 6 inches high. The 8-foot wall with the type of block that my client wants to use, 8 foot wouldn't allow it. We would just have to put too much the geometric grid in there. So we got the 2 walls. The first tier, 7 foot 6 high. We propose to put a bankment of these type 2 medium evergreen plantings right along the face of the wall. The face of the wall will span about 90 feet long. And then as well, the same bankment of plantings with trees on the second tier. Between the 2 walls is about 5 foot in space, so there'll be plenty of room to provide trees and other notorious or plush shrubs and plantings. And then right above the second tier is we'll keep the 4-foot chain link fence, which is only directly behind the wall, so it's not even about 12 inches off the wall. And again, both, on both tiers, they'll both span the full distance of the wall, blocking and covering the wall at all times. There is about a 30-foot bankment of existing plantings and trees that are on the site now that will be left. Some of them are dying and are withered away, so some of them will be removed, but they plan on keeping most of them there, along with the new plantings that we will do.
Anything else?
Yeah, that's about it. The reason for it is since with such a steep slope, you know, from the existing fence line, there was only about 15 feet of rear yard that my client had, and we're going to propose to give him another 12 foot. So he'll have a total of about 30 feet from his house to where the fence starts of a flat slope of the rear yard, so he could have usable space.
So the purpose of what you propose to do is to give him a bigger backyard, essentially.
Bigger backyard, level surface where he could play with his children and just pursuit of happiness in his life.
Okay.
I might be able to add to a little bit to that.
Please give your name and address to the record, for the record, please, sir.
Steve DeMarco, DEMARCO, 4 Monroe Court, Smithtown. With the severe erosion over the last many years, I guess, and the severe storms, especially with the last being Sandy, the slope has increased. So the property line and the fence was falling off, and I was actually losing property. So all the trees and bushes that were in that natural area actually all died, and kind of even some actually rolled to the bottom of the hill because of the erosion. The roots lost its grip, and most of the trees are dead. So now when you drive down 25A, as you see a lot of some of the trees that look nice, and I want to keep it looking nice, all you see is now my backyard. It's totally exposed. There is no protection of it at all. It's all dead wood, basically. So these walls will prevent the runoff. It'll extend the property, of course, but it's going to slow down. We're going to have drains, which will prevent further erosion, as well as plant further bushes and trees and preserve the trees that are still alive that are there. So the erosion will allow the plants to continue to grow.
How long have you lived there?
Since August of '05. June of '05, excuse me, June of '05. It actually wasn't that bad then. I mean, I saw that I would probably have to build it up a little bit and fix the fence, but over the last couple of years, the fence is actually, it's falling off the hill. It's hanging off the hill.
So you've been there almost 9 years?
Correct.
And you're saying that over the past several years, the situation has gotten progressively worse?
Considerably, yes.
And it's your intention to build what you propose to build in order to help remedy that situation, as well as give yourself a little bit more room in the backyard?
Correct, as well as security, too. I mean, right now you could run up the hill and get into my backyard.
All right. Anybody anybody present who has any questions regarding or wants to otherwise be heard regarding this application?
I have a couple.
All right. Any questions from anybody on the board?
Yeah, is there a way for you're an architect, did you say?
I work with the architect.
Okay. Is there a way to address planning's concerns that they expressed to 100% shield this wall or walls from view on the road, so you just won't be able to see it, but it will still benefit your client?
Well, that's the idea is to do these medium evergreens that are selected from the planning board sheet, about 6 foot high. They probably push out to about 4 feet, and the way we establish it would be 4 feet on center. So when they grow in full, you won't be able to see the wall at all behind it.
And over there, I know someone who lives over in the condos over there. Isn't there a retaining wall that's visible by the condominium complexes from the road?
There's 2 retaining walls that are actually there. There was one that was traditionally there when it was the Oak Beach Inn.
Right.
That was always there. That's by the roadside as you cut up into the hill.
Right.
There's a retaining wall, and then at the top of the hill, there's a retaining wall as well.
So if there's a visible retaining wall on the same road, and they're telling us they could do this in such a manner that you won't be able to see it, why are we going to give this gentleman a hard time about trying to fix his
I would disagree that you
property?
won't be able to see it. You will be able to see it. There's, you know, if you take a look at what the other homeowners have done in that particular area, with regard to it, if they have built their retaining walls at the top of the slope where the fence is, and we have no objection to doing it that way if there is an erosion. But there is a very steep slope at that particular location, and you are looking at something that you are going to see if you take a look at that. That it's a very narrow area.
Well, how do you address that, sir?
Well, off the street line, the property gets narrow at one end and much wider at the other end. And the widest end, it's about a 30-foot, 25 to 30 foot from the street, from where a wall will start. And at the shortest end, the required distance for the retaining wall from the property line will be 16 feet. So even there's a natural buffer of these trees and everything that exists there as well, along with all the plantings that we're going to do. I don't see it being such an eyesore where you're going to even see this wall when all the trees from the existing and the new mix together and merge into one. The wall should be really hidden to the eye.
So you're going to have two retaining walls, right? A lower one and a higher
And
one?
a higher one.
And you said it was 16 feet from the lower wall to the road?
The property is narrow on one side and it gets wider on the other. So the narrower side, we kept to 16 feet 8 inches, which 16 feet for a retaining wall from our property line. So that was from the rear yard property line. We kept to 16 feet, so that's the smallest embankment. And even in that 16 feet, there's an abundance of trees there as well. And then on the other side, the wider side, is about 25 to 30 feet, which is even more shrubbery and trees and planting and green life that's going to block essentially what we propose to do with our new planting as well. So you got about 20 or 15 feet of trees existing, then you'll have our new trees that we propose, and then you'll have the retaining wall.
Is there any way they can modify this proposition to satisfy your concerns?
No. My feeling is that if you decide to start modifying that corridor, you have a the reason I'm asking the board to inspect that particular area is you have 2,000 feet where you have this same buffer that you were having. And we are looking at it that if you are going to make this change, then everybody else down that particular road could request the same type of buffer or modification. And if that's the case that you're going to do that, then you're going to significantly impact that area. If you're asking me if one site is going to negatively impact the corridor, the answer is no, it's just one site. I'm looking at it from the point of view that we have, and that's why we provided you with an aerial of the corridor showing the buffers on both sides. That's a significant size buffered area that we have in town, and if you begin to alter it, it's going to have an impact. And I'm concerned not only about this one here, but we have identically the same type of buffer that was done by the planning board on the Landing Avenue side, which is across from the golf course in that particular area. So this is a policy question of the board, and it's certainly within the board's purview as far as what you are to review, but we think that this is a significant question that's before the board.
What if we made a requirement that it be the retaining walls be completely invisible, buffered by shrubbery or whatever else?
What you're going to lose is a lot of tree growth in that particular area, and I think this is why I'm asking the board to go out and do a site inspection, because you are removing, there are a number of trees. It's a wooded area. That's what you have in this particular area. And you remove the woods from that particular area. Can you screen it from view? Sure, you could screen it from view, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to preserve the woodland appearance here. If you look at the retaining wall that we put at Yellow Top Farm, we effectively screened that from public view. So we know we could screen them from public view. And that's a relatively large retaining wall, and when you drive down Mount Pleasant, you don't see the wall itself, but it's not naturally appearing. It's very contrived, formal landscaping that you see on there. So can you make it invisible with landscaping? Yes. But what we're concerned there is you have a wooded corridor. It's an appearance issue here, and you will change that. And I think that's a significant question.
But it seems to me by denying this, and we haven't seen it yet, but it's going to significantly prejudice this guy. He's got a problem in his backyard. He's trying to fix it, and I have an issue with denying him the ability to improve his property.
This has
I
been
think
an-
perhaps there are other alternatives that could be explored here, and I agree that we should go see the site. I have several questions, when you're through, because I share some of the same concerns that were expressed in the memo here. So,
Go ahead.
you show it's a cross-section of the walls there. Can you?
That's correct.
Just by pointing to the diagram, show us what the existing, or where the existing elevation is?
The existing slope?
Yes, the existing slope as to,
Well, the best way to even see it would be on,
well, surely there's an existing
site
slope
plan.
there now that if,
well, yeah, we're carrying it,
It's on your map.
it's carrying it from this line here. If you could take this line and imagine it coming all the way up.
okay, so it's behind the walls
It's
right
this
now.
steep right here. Yeah, the slope would be
Okay,
behind the
that was
wall,
my
and we're
question.
infilling it in and
I
adding
believe you can
more
see this
land.
on the last page of your map.
Okay, now the other question I would have is how is this going to blend with the adjacent neighbors? Should they choose not to do the walls? What's the transition at the property line?
Well, there's about a 6-foot, setback from the side property lines, and as well, all the neighbors, there is no neighboring yard or anything next to each of these walls. It's just all woods and that buffer zone.
The neighbors to the left and to the right of me, their property is predominantly on the side of their house. They have a pool.
Right.
So they actually have a retaining wall as well, but it goes off to the side. So it starts in the back, but it extends their side.
There's other retaining walls.
And then on the other side of me, there is no retaining wall. His slope is nowhere near as great, and his house is further set forward towards the street. So he has significant property from the back of his house to the edge of that fence. His fence is actually intact, which was somewhat attached to mine.
Okay.
I understand his concerns. I don't disagree. I feel the same way. This is not something I wanted to do, by far. This is something I'm being forced to do because the trees have died, the roots have come out. I mean, some of the trees have fell in the backyard. They had to be forcibly removed after them falling onto the fence, damaging the fence. I had a deck back there. It fell on the deck, damaged the deck. So this is something I'm being forced to do. This is not something I want to do just to extend my property. The property is actually, it's shrinking. It's actually going to cause damage to the house.
I get it. I think we just have to go do it on site.
I just have a couple of questions. Does the proposal entail both the retaining walls being approximately the same length from one side to the other?
Yes, well, the property, as it goes back closer to the house, it gets a little narrower, but yeah, for most part, it's around the same size.
And you propose to have the retaining walls, if I understand you correctly, terminate approximately 6 feet from the property line on each side?
On each side.
So there'll just be brush on each side? Whatever's there now is going to stay there?
Yes,
Okay.
on each side.
And how many?
The walls on each side are smaller too. As it tapers up, it just gets smaller, so it's not.
Approximately how many feet are each of the retaining walls across?
It's 100 by, well,
Just
be
the width,
exact.
from one side to the other?
93 by 23. So the front wall will be 93, and then the two side walls on the edge are 23.
Okay. But you said there's going to be two
Two.
levels of walls?
Yep.
The other one's going to, the top one is going to be 93?
Yeah, the top one, top one's 93, the bottom one's 93 long, and then the bottom wall would be 5 feet to the second wall, and then another, what is it, 20 feet of retaining wall on the top wall, side wall. So
And these are
top
each
side
gonna-
wall is 20 feet, and then the bottom side wall is 5 feet.
And these are each going to end approximately 6 feet from each property line.
Correct,
And
correct.
how many evergreens do you anticipate putting in there in order to screen this the way that you intend to screen it?
Well, 4 feet on center, according to the planning department code of Smithtown, they wanted.
Have
they
you done the
suggested.
math? How many trees you think it's going to take?
For 20 or 30?
Has
30.
there been any communication regarding what type of trees are going to be put in there?
We were looking at, yeah, we were looking at a list right here. We were going to go with the emerald green arboretas, 6 foot.
Arborvitaes.
Arborvitaes, 6'7", about 6 foot in height. And then
Okay.
have them, grow to above and beyond the wall. But yeah, so 4 foot on center. And again, on both tiers, the bottom tier and the top tier.
Right.
As well as saving the trees that are at the bottom that are still alive. I mean, this will allow them to now grow.
Any other questions from anybody on the board?
I have a question for Frank. I may have misunderstood something you said. I know the concern here is aesthetics. Did you say you would be okay with them putting the retaining wall at the point of the road? Because I would think that would be most visible, so I'm not sure if I
No,
misunderstood.
I said, when you go on your site inspection, you'll notice that at the tops of the hill, where the fence line is, that's where a number of owners have already built retaining walls. That's at the top of where the crest is. And that is to allow for erosion and other things that have happened. So if it occurs at the top of the hill, which is the old fence line that was approved by the planning board in '55, I have no objections to that.
Okay, I see.
Any other
We
questions?
looked into that. I don't know.
So maybe you can address why that's not feasible, or if it's not feasible.
We did look into that. I would assume that would have been the cheapest way to go, and I could afford that. But we were advised that that was not feasible because of the slope. The wall would not be able to be secured. It had to be built as 2 walls.
Who told you that? This architecture firm?
I believe it was, who handles that, the building department, planning department? Somebody at the town of Smithtown, because I know his
Well,
boss went
the
there.
planning director's saying he has no objection if you do that. My understanding is.
Then it had to be the engineering department.
I've been back and forth with the engineering department probably for about, this got in October of 13, so we've been going back and forth with the engineering department for about 3, 4, 5 months now. And, at first it started as 8-foot walls, and then everything, due to engineering and the calculations of the wall and the block that he's using, everything got shrunk and everything had to get moved around. And this appeared to be the most practical, feasible, and safest way to build this wall.
Well, the memo indicates that engineering has no objection to the proposal, to the request.
Mr. Chairman,
As-
I
as
should
now.
note when the engineering department says that they're responding to the waiver request in terms of the fence and the planting screen.
Right.
When they do look at building permits, they look at that as a separate matter.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, I tend to agree with Mr. DeRubius's recommendation that we go out and do a site inspection. I think due to the nature of the proposal and some of these issues that we've been discussing, that we probably would not be able to make a proper determination on this application without going out there and seeing it for ourselves. So I'm in agreement with that, to adjourn it for an on-site inspection, and we'll ask if somebody wants to make a motion.
I make a motion that we adjourn this for a period of 2 weeks for an on-site inspection.
Well, Frank, would you prefer to have it a date certain, or just when it comes back up again?
Well, I'll wait for the board, the board to tell,
Well, we calendar it for the April 16th meeting, and I assume by then,
One of us won't be here April 16th.
oh, but you'll get a chance to view, perhaps.
Sure, I can view
Yeah.
it, but I don't know that I'll be able to
Okay.
vote on it.
All right, then in deference to my colleague,
You want to just make an application to adjourn for an on-site inspection?
Yes.
And let planning department determine when it's going to be recalendared?
that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
His motion, anybody want a second? The motion as amended?
I'll second as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? So adjourned for an on-site inspection. So we're going to go out and take a look at it, see for ourselves what is there, and then it'll come back on again, and after we look at it, we will vote on it. We're not going to close the hearing, so that if there's any questions or anything that have to be asked by the applicant or his representative, after we go out and look at it, we can still do that. And they'll be notified of when the new date will be. I'm going to guess it's probably going to be either our first or second meeting in May, which is the first or third Wednesday in May. All right. We're going to go out and look at it, and it would be sooner, but one of our members is not going to be here in 2 weeks, and I think we prefer to have everybody's input on this one. So it's going to be adjourned. We're going to go look at it. It'll come back on again. We'll have an opportunity to come back, answer any questions that may come up based upon what we see when we go out there, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Mr. Chairman, the next item that's on the agenda under Part 3, Item 11, is a waiver request for Winston's Run at Wisconsin, number 1092. Should note that the applicant has indicated that he cannot be present tonight, but also you have an item in correspondence from a neighbor regarding this request. Just so you're aware, the Planning Department has reached out to the Department of Environment and Waterways, and they have indicated that they could plant the street trees if the town board accepts a payment to their street tree fund. And just a point of clarification, in our memo, 14 street trees at the rate that he was bonded would be $1,750.
How did the applicant communicate his inability to not be here tonight?
He emailed our department.
Emailed?
Yes.
And did he give a reason why he couldn't be here tonight?
He stated that he's out of the country.
Out of the country. Did he give any indication as to when he's expected to return to the country?
Let me see if I have that here.
Yeah, I know we normally require appearances from everybody, but in this particular scenario, if we continue to delay, the only people we harm are the people that live on the block, because it's going to be tree planting season soon. And I'd be inclined to act without the guy present if you guys...
Well, I recall when this application was made, there was a representation made. I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly if letters were presented, but that some of the residents in the area did not want the trees planted. And now I see we have correspondence today from one of the residents who wants the trees planted. And I think we had correspondence the last time this was on from a resident who wanted the trees planted. I don't know if this is the same person or a different person.
A different person.
Different person.
Correct.
So apparently there may be some difference of opinion amongst the people who live there as to whether the trees should or shouldn't be planted.
Mr. Chairman, I should note that it was the applicant who indicated that the residents didn't want the trees planted.
Right,
Right.
right. We have no correspondence. He just said that. There's no
This board adjourned-
substantiation from the residents who
Right.
live there.
The board originally adjourned this, saying you want to see something from the residents that said that. We got exactly the opposite information. So I'm not saying that there is no resident that, there may be, he may be telling the truth that there is a resident that doesn't want it, but the only people that have come into our office, which has been 2 of the residents out of the 4 that are there, or 5.
I think you're being kind. What the representation made to us was that nobody wanted trees, and that was not accurate.
Okay.
And that, I think, is why he's not showing up here, because we have that transcript, and we were going to ask him about that. But my understanding is that nobody on the block has an objection to trees going in, to your knowledge, correct?
Correct.
To the best of our knowledge, nobody objects to it.
In the email that advised that from the applicant that advised that he could not be here tonight, did he request that the matter be adjourned, or did he just say, I cannot make it?
He stated that won't be back in New York until April 4th, and stated that he needs another adjournment.
So this builder is a one-man operation.
He's indicated that the company that built this subdivision has gone out of business, and it's now just him remaining.
So just him.
Our next meeting would be April 16th. If he's requesting an adjournment, I don't see any reason why 2 weeks would really make a big difference
However,
here,
if I may say, I do.
unless you have a different opinion.
I do agree with Adam that the tree planting season is upon us, and we have to make a decision by that date, because by the time we get the order out, you really don't plant trees after June 1st. So we have a very short window when to try to get the staff and everybody else in line in planting those trees. So 6 weeks sounds like a long time, but for government, it's no.
We know that the wheels of government sometimes spin very slowly.
We would need them to receive the check.
Not always, but sometimes.
They grind, actually.
Right.
And would the 2 weeks take us in a situation where we're going to be beyond the tree planting season, so that it couldn't be done this year, it had to be done next year? if
It
was gonna
would,
be
we
done?
would have to do it in the fall then. If this board approved it in May, for example, there just is not enough time to do all, to receive the check, cash it, transfer the funds, place the order, set the crews out, and have it done in a timely fashion.
What leverage do we have over this guy? Let's say we act tonight. Do we have any leverage over him?
Well, he has a performance bond that's outstanding that will cover this cost.
Okay,
And so he's bonded for this, as well as we have a cash deposit.
okay.
So there is he wants that money back, and he wants to get off his performance bond.
So if we act tonight, will the trees get planted this spring?
No, because his performance bond is still in effect. Until his performance bond is renewed, do we know when his performance bond expires?
It is expired, and he hasn't made an application to renew it yet.
Okay, then he has to renew his performance bond.
So there's no harm in waiting the 2 weeks then, because they're
No.
not getting done in this spring anyway.
Well, I would say that unless he does something very quickly, you're correct, it will have to be in the fall.
All right, so if it's not going to make any difference, the man is asking for an adjournment. It's only going to be 2 weeks. I would give him, in my opinion, one more chance, and if he's not here the next time, then, unless he's got a real good reason not to be here for some other reason, we should go forward with making our decision. So anybody want to make a motion to adjourn this for 2 weeks?
Frank, can you indicate to him that this is the last adjournment he'll get?
Yes.
so
Yeah,
he
I would
doesn't-
say that would be
'cause
also a
otherwise he'll
good
come back
idea.
and he'll be out of the
Yes.
country again, and, you know.
We'll let him know that.
Yes.
Tell him we have the transcript, so.
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
I remember at that meeting, I brought my work from that meeting, the initial meeting, and there was someone here who objected to the trees. Now, is it possible that if somebody has a lot of landscaping and the tree is going to be in the way of what they already did, are they allowed to just say, don't put it in front of mine? Are they allowed to do that?
Well, it's on town property to begin with, the landscaping. Usually what happens, we work with people once we plant the trees. If there's a landscaping already in, we try to make some sort of an adjustment around that. Rarely do you have somebody who completely says no. Usually it's a question of placement that you would want. And we'd work with somebody about placing them. Since it's developed already, and there are probably mailboxes and other things that you have to take into consideration. So we try to make an adjustment on that. And we'll see what we can do about planting them. What may happen is we may lose 1 or 2 trees in the process, but at least we'll get the bulk of the trees planted in an area, and that's really the best you could hope for, because we normally lose 1 or 2 trees anyways within the first 5 years. Within a subdivision. So.
What would be the response if, in fact, the homeowner did say, I don't want it in front of my house? How would that be handled?
Well, normally we try to work with them and see what would happen. We don't generally try to cause a confrontation with them, but we always find that there's always somebody who would gladly accept an additional tree. that's next, there are people
Right.
who would like that, so we move the trees over, and 5 years from now, somebody's house looks very nice with 3 or 4 trees in front of it. So we try to keep it.
It's a matter of choice.
Yes.
All
But
right.
for the board's consideration, I've used this as an example, in your travels, the next time you're going from Kings Park and go down through Rose Street, that's probably the best classic example of a tree-lined street that we have in town. We use that as a photographic example of how good a street can look when all the trees are planted and you have a tree canopy.
Rose Street?
Rose Street, that's, you take 25A where it turns 90 degrees, instead of going down 25A, you go straight. That's Rose Street. And I think if you go there, and especially during the spring when it butts out, you'll find that that is probably like one of the top 5 streets that we have in town that's very attractively looking. And that'll give you an idea of why we emphasize street trees, because once you have something like that, it really changes the character of a community significantly. So, we'll work with residents the best way we possibly can. We'll get all the trees planted. There's no question about that. It's just where, I think, is what we decide.
But
Okay?
just so we can be clear, as far as the issue of the wishes of the residents are concerned, we have heard from 2 of the residents who've expressed desire to have the trees. We've heard from no residents who say that they don't want the trees.
That's correct.
Only the applicant made a representation
Yeah.
that none of them want it, but that hasn't turned out to be the case.
Barbara said that somebody went at the last hearing.
I think somebody might have been there.
Okay.
I had the names of 2 people, so, I mean, I'm not sure if he gave it to us, the builder, or I think that there was either a Mr. Martin or a Mr.
No,
Martin.
what happened was that, because I remember this at the public hearing, we already heard from the first person before the public hearing that he wanted the trees. And that's where it came up when we asked at the public hearing, when he made that representation, we wanted something more visible than just his testimony. I think we were relying upon his testimony. We didn't get anything at that meeting, and I think the record shows that.
To the best of my recollection, I don't believe any homeowners have come before the board on this application. 3 have contacted me, 2 of which have written the email and letter that you have.
So this is some of the names that he gave us at night, with just
That's possible.
what he said. And actually, we did the on-site, and I think it'll look really nice with the trees. So like, and if somebody did object, like you said, then somebody else could fit another tree someplace else, and it would be a great idea.
All right, so I think we've determined that the 2 weeks is not going to make a large difference, that we're inclined to give the gentleman or the applicant the 2-week adjournment, but that he also be notified that this is going to be the last adjournment he's going to get, and that he should be here in 2 weeks if he wants to be heard on his application. So with that being said, we have a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, motion to provide a final adjournment for item number 1092 on today's calendar, Winston's Run Nesconset, to be adjourned till April 16th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? So adjourned to April 16th. Oh,
Can't go on forever, you know?
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda under Part 4 is the adoption of the minutes from the March 5th meeting.
motion to adopt the minutes of the March 3rd meeting, March 5th meeting, right? So-
Mr. Chairman, motion to adopt the March 5th, 2014 minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries, minutes are adopted.
One last item, I just wanted to discuss with the board. I did, if you recall, on Jenna Court, I did meet the next day with the highway superintendent over that particular matter, and I just asked him to appear at the meeting to discuss it. What he did come up with, which I gave to the applicant, was another compromise, which I think will work, or he came up with a compromise, and that is, if those of you who have traveled Maple Avenue will notice that we have brick in the center. There's like a median down where the park is down Maple Avenue. That's actually not really brick. That's a plastic laminate that we put in place that's made to look like brick. And it's unlike a lot of the painted stuff, this actually lasts for several years. What the highway superintendent has agreed to was to cut out the area that, from the semicircle with a flush-mounted brick overlay, and he would like the homeowners to maintain their half, and he will plow the roads. What we have said, and the developers seem to want to compromise on that, but we want to make sure that the homeowners understand that the highway superintendent is not intending to maintain that particular area. And if they're in agreement with that, then we'll bring this back to the board as a package. We're not going to bring it back unless everybody is on the same page. So I thought it was a reasonable compromise, and the developer liked it. And I think it'll look nice when it's done in that particular area, so.
Is this the proposal that's in Mr. Wallach's memorandum that we have, March 26th?
Yeah.
Oh, I believe so, yes.
And
So would they
in
grant
correspondence.
up to that fake brick?
No,
Or
what they
would-
do is they mill out about 1.5 inches of the road itself. So they
Right.
put a groove in. Then they put this brick in, it's flush mounted, it's like a marker, it's like a permanent marker.
all right.
And what we had suggested was a flush mounted curb.
That's what it says in the memo, a curve.
Yeah. And what happened was, everybody was sort of, flush mounted would mean just at the surface, like a sidewalk. It really didn't look really that good, or at least we didn't think it was that good. And then the highway superintendent agreed to putting in that, which, by the way, would be installed by our traffic safety department, since they have the equipment. And the developer would pay for that, the milling and the actual thing. And I think it will add some attractiveness to that particular area, and won't look, it'll give it a nice look to it. And the residents will get what they want as well. But we just want to make sure that everybody understands what the highway superintendent's agreeing to.
They're going to plow them in.
They're going to, he has told me unofficially that if there are no cars in the area, he will dig it out as a courtesy. But if they, the problem that he has with these areas, and that's why I wanted him here, was that when they have these at mid-block, these semicircles, people park in them during snow removal, and it becomes impossible for them to try to remove snow with the cars parked, especially perpendicular to the road. So he's going to, he said that he will probably have a snow plows clear that area if there's no cars in it, because it's no big deal. But if there's cars in it, he's going to,
The
yes.
proposal that's referred to as involving the flush-mounted curb, was that curb going to be raised above the roadway at all?
It's going to be, it's actually, when you say flush mount, it's actually, there's a slight hump off the road. You could actually, it's a texture feel, but it's not going to be like
Not like a raised curb? or
yeah,
that-
you could drive over it
Right.
at speed, for
So it'll be
example.
relatively level, just be a little bit of different texture.
Right. We also have it at the same material in St. James on Lake Avenue
You
for the
look down on
crosswalk.
St. James Day as you're walking, you'll see it, it's right there. It's the walkways that connect the opposite sides of the street.
Right.
It's really quite decorative.
It is, and actually what we like about it is because a lot of the municipalities are using this painted brick or this asphalt that's painted on top of it, and it fades after a while and it looks really terrible, or it wears off. This stuff doesn't. It's very, very durable, and it maintains its color. So we think it'll look very nice for the residents.
And it's attractive.
And it's
So
attractive,
if
yeah.
it's determined that everybody's in agreement with it, you'll bring it back before the board in its
Right.
modified form, and then we'll go from there.
Yes,
Okay.
okay?
One question, what happens when they resurface the road? This brick is now, or this border is lower?
Well, they have to deal with it at that particular point. More than likely, the highway superintendent would replace it in the normal course. They're usually good about that.
And we've heard from the applicant, but no, we haven't heard anything from the residents concerned, have we?
Well, that's why we asked the developer to make sure he has, that the residents are aware of what's going to happen.
Okay,
So if they're aware of that,
this is going to be in, like, the trees over on the
yes.
other street? Okay.
But in this case, we want everybody to be aware of that.
Okay.
Okay, and because one of the issues is, by the way, is that it is private property. We only have an easement over that property. That is their property right now. When we do these cul-de-sacs, the bulb of the actual semicircles are on private property. So it is their private property, not the town's. And the highway superintendent is basically saying he doesn't want to maintain private property. And so I think we can work out a compromise, and I think this will work out to everybody's benefit.
That's
So-
good, okay. And there's also a piece of correspondence, I see, from Mr. Di Nicola regarding the bowler operating application, which is the proposed service station with a convenience store at Jericho and Betts and Comac.
What he's,
He's requesting that the applicant be given an opportunity to answer any questions the board may have following the site inspection. So the hearing has not been closed,
No, it
and he'll have that opportunity, as far as I'm concerned. It might be a good idea if he wishes to bring some of the people with him that he brought last time, so that if there are questions, we can ask them right then and have them answered, and then move on.
Okay.
It's up to him really who he wants to bring.
For the board's knowledge, because some of the board members are new, a petition has been submitted against this particular zone change. And pursuant to Section 265 of town law, there's a requirement that if 20% or more of the landowners adjacent to the particular site sign a petition against it, a supermajority is needed by the town board. We just received that petition yesterday. Was it yesterday or today?
How many people signed it?
Well, it's 3 pages long. So, but we only count the people that are adjacent to it. So we're doing that analysis right now. We should have it done, because there's only 4 major property owners. We're going to search for those, and we're going to do the calculations. And the way it works is we do the calculations, refer to the town attorney rules as to whether or not they need 4 votes. We'll try to have all that done by the next meetings, not that it bears any your determination, but that you just may find that information useful.
That happened with Hess, I believe, as well, right?
It happened with Hess, but they fell 1% short. They were 19%. They needed 20%, so they didn't have a supermajority.
20% in terms of space? That's what.
The way it reads is it's the property owners within 100 feet of the property. And what we do is we draw a boundary line of 100 feet around the property and then measure everybody's land area that's in that. And we count it's 20% of the land area that you have to have.
The land area of their whole lot?
Of the 20% of the 100-foot buffer, let's say, around the
Okay.
property. You have to have at least 20% of the landowners in that area
20% of the land, in other words,
Right.
aggregate altogether.
disagreeing. And and we do those calculations, and then we give it to the town attorney to make the determination. He reviews our calculations and determines whether or not they need 4 votes.
So it wouldn't necessarily be limited to the adjacent property owners that are right on the border. If I recall correctly, there were 3 homes behind it. Then you have the car wash to the east side, and you have vacant property to the west side, and you have the highway on the south side.
Yes, and it's going to be very interesting because you have a recharge basin which is adjacent to that, and one of the determinations I have to make with the town attorney is how do we count that?
That's on the west side.
On the west side
Is
of
that
the
state-owned?
I believe so.
The state owns part of it, and we own part of it. It's dual owned. There's actually 2 recharge basins back to back, even though that's there. But regardless, it's a government owned, so I'm not sure how that relates to the law, and I'm going to let the town attorney figure that one out. We'll calculate it both ways for them, and they'll make a determination. But we'll let the board know in either regard what
Okay,
that
well, as
is.
far as Mr. Di Nicola's correspondence is concerned, was it your intention to just respond to it?
Yes, we're going to
Okay.
let him know, and we also will give him a copy of our I already told Mr. D'Anicola I'll give him a copy of our recommendations after I mail it out to the board.
Okay, and again, it's up to him who, if anybody, he wants to bring with him. But if there are questions that any of the board members have after going out there, it might be good to have some of those people here so that any questions can be answered right there, and then we can move from there.
Okay,
That's, again, but it's up to him who he brings.
okay.
Okay, that's it. Okay. Anything else?
No, the final item of correspondence was the trees on Derrick Court, which you've discussed.
Okay. So, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none?
Can I talk to you for a
Sure.
second?
So adjourned.